This next segment, we're going to be looking at individuals in the portrait division. And I'm blessed to be accompanied by Michael Novo from Illinois and Candice KausHagen. I'll get it one of these days, Candice. From Florida. Two experts in the field and very generous with their knowledge and experience. And also both very highly awarded photographers. So if you get the chance to hear them speak or present anywhere, please take advantage of being in the room and listening, because you will gain a lot and you do yourself big favors. Portrait individual, we want to thank B&H and also Critiq for their sponsorship of this area of what we're doing here at the Icon International Photography Awards. Guys, let's have a look at the first image. We'll do that image. All right. Michael, take it away. Actually, before we do that, I know you've been in the chair before, but just a quick brief, who are you, where are you from?
Oh, yeah, Michael Novo from Chicago, Illinois, primarily wedding and portrait photographer, with portrait being a lot of boudoir work, and kind of have used a lot of the image competition to get from, some of my early work, which I'll only show you privately after a few drinks, to just being hopefully a contributing part back to the community.
Candice?
Candice KausHagen from Rosemary Beach, Florida. My partner and I operate a studio in Rosemary Beach where we primarily shoot families, environmental families, and commercial work.
Thanks, Candice. All right, what do we think of this one?
Yeah, so I both had a chance to score this image. I also did the private critiques for this one, and I love the fact that now I'm going to get a chance to discuss it and hear more feedback on it. I'm a sucker for images that throw me for a loop, and the discomfort that I'm feeling from this, with the subject almost escaping the mat. If I was to see this in person, I think that this is one of those that makes you smile, and you would have to take a look, because it almost creates like an illusion of, wait, is this the print or is this the mat? And so I really have to commend the maker for that. In terms of like some things to improve, really, I'll just briefly touch on the first two things that popped to my mind, which is the wardrobe, like the sort of the sweatshirt. I think maybe that could have been changed out to something else. And I'm not quite sure what I'm getting in the background just above the hairline, whether that's like sand. I'm not 100% sure what I'm reading. I don't know what you've got, Candice.
I was having the same thought actually about the background part. So what I love about this is you've brought all of the key elements together. So there's originality, there's creativity, there's expression. The lighting pretty much works here. It's just those two little refinements that would totally, bump it up. The texture in the background, it kind of reads like water or like windblown sand, and it just makes you stop and think about it too long, which distracts from the rest of the image.
Yeah, and one other note that keeps our eye up there is you've got the hair of the subject, and the kicker on it feels just a smidge too bright, and so we end up spending our time like right in that very tippy top of the frame, and I really just want to be in the expression, because I think that the skin was handled beautifully.
Yeah, great comments, guys. Let's have a look at another one. While they're having a look, I'll just remind the audience that what we're looking at here are a selection of images that got 79 or below in the competition space, meaning that they did not receive an award. So we're going to look at what the positives were, but perhaps more importantly, find out what could have been done to lift them to a higher standard, or what are some of the reasons that they didn't receive that award. Thanks, Candice.
I really love the focal length of this. We're kind of like right up in his space. It gives us the opportunity to really see all of the details. There's some things going on in the background, and I'm wondering if they add to the story or if they have any relevance. And if I could improve this a little bit, it would be with some very minor retouching on hair. The beard sections, I agree with kind of leaving the scraggles in there, but there's some coming off the top of his forehead that are sort of floating in the background that may be a little, clone out here and there. There's one down on his neck. Just little refinements and retouch.
Yeah, exactly. The more simple the image you give us, the easier that one tiny little flaw is going to stand out. And I know that like Jerry Gionis has said the line, so I'm just going to quote him. But if you get a Ferrari and you have this perfect machine, and then it's got a dent in it, that dent will stand out immediately. Versus if you have a car that's been used for maybe 10 years, then that one dent is kind of covered up by the others. So I think by the intention of that, you have to really, really take a close look at it. In terms of the background, and this, if it's just this monitor, then my apologies. We've only seen this digitally and not in print. But the background goes to almost like a complete black, and where the portrait portion in front is just gorgeous, the background is starting to just, okay, like I'm looking for more story to come out and really tie the subject to what is behind the subject. So maybe a little bit either more light or more elements added to the background where that completes that story for us.
Thanks, guys. It was interesting you were just saying that there's not a lot wrong with it. So how do you feel about the comment that we can look at an image and say, this is what's wrong with it, and that's why it doesn't get an award, whereas sometimes it's just missing something? Do you know what I mean? Like there's images that we look at and we say, it's a good image, but it's not an award image because there's something missing. What are some of those things that could be missing from an image?
More storytelling in this case.
Yep, okay.
It just needs something, an X factor that we need to kind of piece all of, the rest of the story together. It looks like there's a bucket in the background, and I want to know, like, maybe he's a painter and that's where he keeps his paintbrushes or something. It's a beautiful portrait, but for an award, it's got to have an extra layer.
Yeah, something's missing.
There are, I feel almost 3 levels to being a photographer, at least for myself. When you first pick up a camera, you love every photo, and then there's no clients that would love your photo. Nobody's paying for it, and there's certainly no judges that are looking at your images and saying, "Wow, that's amazing." And then you get a little bit better, and then a couple of people are like, "I'll pay you a couple bucks to take those photos." Like, and you get into this, wow, like I can sell images, and so images like this are very much in that category where they're saleable. And then there's that third level to where you're not just impressing yourself and your friends and your family and your clients, but now you're impressing complete strangers that have never met you. They don't know your name. They're just seeing your photo. And in a world where your image lasts on a screen as long as the person's finger can come back to swipe to the next one, when you can get them to stop and be like, huh, I wonder what that is. That is that net elevated level for me.
I'll just add one last comment on this one, that the eyes just seem to lack a bit of life. There just needs a little bit in there. Because we can see the eyes, I think I understand the looking down and away, but there's kind of a darkness there. It'd be nice to see something. Anyway, let's move on to another one. No, we don't. All we know is that these images got 79 or below. And really, in all fairness, when you look at a judging panel and you take an image and you put it across several categories, several judges, and I was telling in a previous session, I had an experience many years ago where I had an image that I entered into 2 international competitions, both print judging, panels of 5, two countries that had very strong competitions. And I put the exact same image. I printed it twice, matted them. They went off at the same time, 2 weeks or 3 weeks apart. The first one got a 58, and to this day is my lowest ever score and was the lowest score in that competition. And my friends, at the time didn't mind ringing me and reminding me. But the same image a couple of weeks later in a very similar competition got an 89. And both panels of strong judges. So sometimes it really is just subjective and there's no way around it. So yeah, the score, 79, 75, 72. Yeah. Good question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can imagine that, this might have been like a personal branding. This woman's an artist. She wants to, have a great headshot or a great branding photo that also shows what she does. And we've kind of brought all of those elements in here. It looks like she's a painter. My first impression where this falls below award level for me is unfortunately in the posing. With a woman of her age, I would generally shy away from posing her with her legs open. The chair pose is, it's cool, but I just don't think it fits the narrative of this subject. And I probably would have tried to switch things up just a little bit to give her something a little more, I don't know, feminine on the bottom half, because the pose feels masculine below the waist.
Yeah, and that ties perfectly to all we know about the subject in this shot is the elements that are the you have the expression, of course, and then you have the elements that are around her. And if it was some like funky, like out of this world paintings that are not necessarily the norm, then I could that pose would be like on point. That where a graceful pose wouldn't work. But here, I'm looking at the beautiful smile. If I zoom in, if you're like in one of those movie shots where you have a close up and you're just looking at the arms up to the face, that's one caliber of image that I'm seeing completely. And then as I zoom out and I look at the backdrop, then now I start to get a little bit of a disconnect. I don't know what your thoughts are on the negative space on the upper right and the frame that's going into the camera right shoulder.
So my thoughts on that are, I can see why they didn't include anything in the upper right. It might have been a little overwhelming, and anything based on the content of her paintings, it would have been bright and would have actually taken away from her face. But this would have made a really great square. It also might have worked as a square with less negative space if everything was layered behind her a little heavier.
Yeah, and yeah, it's one of those where I think things just needed to be shifted around a little bit. And then one other tiny little point is exactly what you pointed at is that the little highlight on the shins there. Either that crop needs to come up. You may not be seeing it on the monitors here, but we can see sort of like the calf and the shin a little bit more on this monitor. So that really either show more, maybe even all the way down to the feet, or just go ahead and crop it so that it goes black there.
Thanks, guys. Let's look at another one.
Okay, I'll just go to how I used to do this, and I would come home with a memory card of a shoot like this personally with about 250 photos, and 175 of them are pretty much this same shot where you just keep pressing the button, and then somebody told me, oh, you have pretty girl syndrome, where you got a pretty girl and it doesn't matter what she's doing, and all of a sudden you just keep pressing the button, and I'm very much like in that range. Again, a lovely, like almost simple shot. And so now we're going to start nitpicking at the details. There's many elements. You've got the little kind of, I don't know if that's a pearl necklace on the camera left side that I'm not quite seeing, or if that's part of the wardrobe. A little bit of things happening with the hair. And then I don't know if you're seeing this kind of as I hit the image, I'm hitting like, it's almost like if your hand floated to the image, it feels like I'm impacting the arms and legs first.
Yeah, I mean, she's got a really intriguing expression. She seems to feel very comfortable in this space. So that's a huge positive for me. Like you're saying, for whatever reason, this is almost like the reverse, where rather than our eye going straight to the highlight, because there's so much highlight on the fronts of her shins, our eye actually goes right into the black hole between her crossed arms and her shins. It actually pulls down rather than up to her face. It might have been resolved by just a little bit closer overlapping legs. And then, tonality on the bottom being a little bit lower to lead us right back up into her face.
Yeah, and just with the pose, the crop, especially sort of on the camera left side, it feels tight. And I like images that make me feel like tight and compressed. I don't mind them, but again, they have to have a purpose. And I don't know if I feel it here, because I really just want to go in the gaze. The masterful part of this image is in the facial expression, and I think you've got that dialed in. There's tiny catch lights. I think if they were too much brighter than that, then that would start to overtake it and make it look almost more glamorous. So I really want to stay just in that face rather than be pulled to all of the other elements.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I was just going to add that that lighting need, as you said, a little bit more control. That back of the hand that's just under the chin is the brightest part of that area, and the forehead. So while the face has got that great expression, we're being pulled just above the expression and just below. So just controlling that a little bit better. And even if you don't get it right in execution of the shoot, certainly in post you can bring it down. So a lot of people focus on the capture and the techniques and the craft in lighting and posing, but don't forget that once you've got that shot, there's a whole nother range of skills and techniques that can be used. So the vision and the ability to see what does work and what doesn't work and what makes it stronger and what makes it weaker can be applied even after post-shoot. And, sometimes we sort of think, I should have shot it this way. Particularly these days, we've got so many tools available. Let's have a look at another one.
This is an incredible location.
Iceland. I think I know exactly where it is.
The
It's
opposite
a lagoon.
of the
a lagoon.
beach that I work on.
Yeah, to Florida. We're out of Florida now.
Yeah, it's an incredible opportunity. I think to bring this up to an award level, it's a lighting issue. We've got the background is quite a bit brighter than the foreground, so her hair is it's feeling like it's lost a little bit of texture. The blacks are pretty black. The dress has motion, it has texture, but because the lighting is flat and not quite dynamic enough, we just kind of get thrown to that background.
Yeah, and I remember this one. There's just images that you remember that have gone through judging, and it certainly stands out in your mind because the pop of the dress does an amazing job of almost desaturating the rest of the image. Whereas if I didn't have the subject, I feel like the background would start having its own color. So really nice job, I think, there, and just really immediately taking me straight to the subject, of course. And I'm to both of you. Maybe I'm totally off my rocker here. I think if you're going to give me a vertical presentation, which could work, I would love to almost get lower and closer into the dress, almost like the water going into the subject. But wait, is it water because it's yellow? Or if you change colors, that could also work. To where you're really getting into the subject and almost like launching up into the sky. If we're going to keep it vertical, I think otherwise, if you don't want to go as low and you want to keep their head below the horizon, then possibly taking it horizontal. That would be a consideration, but I'm not sure if that is the correct way to go.
Yeah, I think the disconnect here is you've got this sort of fluid. It feels like she should be flowing, but the pose is square to camera and it's almost static. So we've got this disconnect between one feeling and the other. And then the other thing is, as it came up, I noticed subconsciously, I grabbed my jacket. I felt colder. So not only have we've got this sort of warm, flowing piece of material, but everything else about the image in terms of its gesture and pose and the color palette in the background is cold. And maybe that's the aim, but I feel like the image, because of the way she's standing and the flowing nature of that fabric, a little bit more of an angle, 45 or something. So we're not looking at something square to camera. All right, let's have a look at something else.
Yeah, I know this image is these disturbing images kind of always give me a little bit of a smile. I love the way that the skull kind of overlays close to where the subject's eye would be. So you've got the two eyes of the skull kind of playing off of that. And I think that is in photography, when you can start giving layers, we're in a 2D world, and when you can start giving depth and dimension, then you are extremely well on your way into going there. The rest of the image, I love the darkness of it, but it almost is like it could use just a little bit more. You've got this great, is it purple magenta light that's off on the right, and I really love that shoulder. It's so silky there. I go off on the left side, and the light almost goes very flat and white. And so I close my eyes and I kind of see one half of the image, and then I look at the other half of the image, and they kind of, that's where they begin to kind of go one way or the other for me.
Gels are so hard to work with. So it's, it's a challenge getting it exactly how you want it. And that's definitely a notable aspect is the lack of green on her shoulder. I kind of feel like too, whatever she's holding, the black part of it is pretty distracting because the width of it is so wide. I tend to look at it for a good part of the time. And if we maybe just were able to shoot from a little lower or switch our ankle up a tiny bit to include less of that, it would probably be a little better for me.
Yeah, and in this shot, I'm going to take a guess that I think that the subject may be holding the cane out, which is what's causing the issue with the shoulder. So to get around that, it's possible that you simply either need to have somebody else do it, have a holder or something like that to do exactly what you said. To bring it a little bit closer, then you can change the angle, and then you're not worried about just, oh, I only have these like few inches to work with.
Yeah, some good comments there, guys. It's an interesting challenge when you're doing a portrait, but the person who's the subject of the portrait is not the main subject in the photo. So you really do need to make those other elements work well, but also pull us back to the subject. And in this case, I think that element's been done well because the skull does complement her gesture, the expression, the dropping the chin, looking out through the eyes and things like that. So that's been done well, but it is a challenge if there's other areas of the image are also pulling us away.
In terms of bringing the viewer back to the subject, would you adjust the f-stop at all one way or the other, or not really?
No, actually looking at this, I would have made it square and come in from the sides. And if you come in from the sides a bit more, you look at the skull and the face is the background. So rather than have the skull, the face, and the rest of the background, the face becomes the background. So there's nothing else to pull you away. That gives me the impact, but it's all about her. How do you feel about that?
You know what? Until you said that, and now I'm starting to wonder. It's like maybe I would even try like zooming out super wide, and that the face begins to almost distort in the background and do that funky thing. And so you've got the skull, and you confuse the viewer even more, and that could be very powerful there because I can see in the face the light is getting there. So then you don't have to worry about the rest of it. Yeah.
Okay. Next image. Let's have look at another one.
This is a very clean, handsome fella. I mean, personally, I love images like this that are just super clean. There's no distractions. It's working for me the way the light's hitting his forehead. And so I'm coming in from the left and then, just kind of following his shape down to the racket. I feel like for this to go into award level, it might just be a little bit of post-processing. It feels a little flat in the shadows specifically. And the shorts are maybe a little distracting. So if we could get a little bit more light on his chest, that would help me out.
Yeah, I was actually the body double for this shot, but they put some other guy's face.
I think you're listening to the voices again.
Yeah, voices. Apologies. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. This was in portrait, but feels almost like a commercial shot because you guys are it's selling me the shorts and it's selling me the shoes and if it was commercial, it's done an amazing job because I don't really want to. If this was a legitimate commercial shot for those shorts and shoes, you really don't want the viewer to spend that much time on the subject's face. And it's a great looking subject, and that's exactly what it does. It leads me in the opposite direction. I initially just took a peek at the face, and the lines of the body, everything just led me immediately right down to the lower half. So I think it would need to be the inverse of it, slightly possibly lighter on the subject and a little bit darker on the wardrobe.
So how would you explain to a potential entrant? They look at an image like this. Candice's first comment was, it's clean, it's there, it's, when it comes to competitions and you get images like this, that an image like this could maybe get an award one year, an image like this the next year doesn't. What's that sort of, what's in that gap, that grey area where images, we talked earlier, Michael, about that 75, 79 and the gap to 80. So what's something we can offer as support there around that sort of subject?
I think that gap is usually just made up in originality. Because if I'm looking at, a a group of 10 finalists where, 60% of them are technically nearly flawless. I mean, wow, amazing. When I'm taking them in at the end of the day, it's going to be, have I seen it before? Is it original? Have they done something that just, makes you think, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, that was exactly the point, is that as judges, one of the beautiful things about the Icon Awards is that if you were to look back at past winners, you're going to see an evolution in images. And that's one of the things that genuinely drew me here, is that if you, I'm in a number of other competitions, and the same work can win many, many times over and over again. 20 years ago, a shot like this is winning the category. 10 years ago, it's going silver, and it just kind of, after a while, we've seen it, and you do have to become original. And it's unfortunate for us now, because if you look at the gallery wall over there, the bar has been set so high, but then that forces you to improve. So regardless of even whether you're hanging in the gallery or not, you are coming back and shooting significantly stronger images for your own clients.
You just gave me a mental analogy of watching, say, the Olympic Games, when the swimmers are swimming and they show you the world record and the swimmers are trying to catch up with it, and you think they're going to get it, and then that last 10 yards is where they fall away, and the record most of the time just disappears. And when we talk about competition space and you look at the definition of scoring, most of the competition scoring will say things like professional standard or above professional standard. So an image like this could be considered professional standard. 5 years ago, it might have been above professional standard. 10 years ago, it was above professional standard with extra creativity and originality. So as you say, as time goes on, that line gets further out. We have to keep up with our game. And that's one of the driving forces behind the Icon Photography Awards, is to give you that line to say, here it is. You just got to keep working towards it. And if you never reach the world record, or if you never reach that line, it doesn't matter, because you're getting faster anyway. You're getting better at what you do. And that's the key point. Let's have a look at another one.
So I really like the colors that are brought together in this. The strong greens in the background, the black and white in the wardrobe. Styling's great. Her makeup looks great. Hair looks great. From an award standpoint, what it's lacking is a little bit of dynamics in the lighting. It's I'm assuming it's probably natural, existing ambient light, which is what I generally work with. And it gets really hard to make things that look different when you're kind of at the mercy of the sun. So I wouldn't change anything about that. But sometimes post is where you start to make those changes to just give it a little bit more depth specifically. And then two, I think it would really help if that white blanket at the bottom had been extended all the way forward, so we didn't have that one extra little green. Every element of distraction you add starts to take away. But otherwise, I like the pose. I think maybe you can speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, let me just echo off of like the blanket. Anytime you give us a blip like of where our eye should go, the question is, did you intend to do that as the maker? Did you mean for my eye and Candice's eye to go from the white of that blanket down to the grass, which is just peeking in there? And if you did, okay, but then that keeps our eye there. And so if there's no story there, that's where the image kind of falls down into that 70s category. And that's the same thing with the backdrop. As I go up, I'm seeing a lot of detail in the leaves that are kind of in the camera right up at the top, and they're very light. So did you intend to take my eye there all the way to the corner of the image away from the subject? If yes, then why? Because I don't see it contributing to the story. And then just to go back to the pose, I kind of want to like it. I like that it's a little bit awkward and stiff, but possibly softening it up a little bit could help with like giving maybe a little bend in the elbows. The wrists just go very straight, and you have a very baggy garment, is that right? Shirt? I'm not sure what it, but it's a little bit baggy, so it begins to kind of stiffen and stale the image for me. I don't know. You guys have thoughts?
I was just going to say the lighting being flat is not. It would be better with a little bit more control of the lighting, a bit more direction, but also as we see it, it puts a lot of emphasis on that thigh area. It's quite bright. So, I think you said where it's taking me here. Is that where you want me to go? And if so, why? I like that. Look at your pictures and take what Michael just said. Doesn't matter what genre you're in. Your eye is taking me here. Is that where you want me to go? And if so, why? Can I see why? Does it contribute to the narrative that you want me to take away, or is it contributing to a distraction or a different narrative that makes no sense? Yeah.
What about how would you find? Can then, and I know I've discussed this on a different session, but I think you said it more eloquently. And how do you see what's distracting? Because I get lost in my own edits all the time. So how do you see, like, I totally missed that leaf on the right or the grass.
There's a few ways to answer that. So there's the old tricks of turning them upside down and blurring. And I think you said Gaussian blur. Just multiply the layer, desaturate it, blur it, and just look where the light and the dark areas are. That tells you where it's going. You can also do it with color, where you separate the color channels and you'll see where the color's taking you. In this case, I think you can see not only is it brighter, but be aware of what I would call plots of real estate. Might sound a bit weird, but you look at an image and the top's broken up with lines and the face has got hair and the leaves all, but that upper thigh area is one area of very similar texture and tone. So it's going to immediately draw us in. So learning that ability to just look at the image and see, almost filter yourself. I look at the emotion, I look at the color. Where's the color dragging me? Where are the tones dragging me? Where are the shapes dragging me? And if they're all taking me to the same places and they're the places I want to be taken, then it's all congruent. It's a strong image. But if they're fighting each other, then perhaps we need to look at that and how can we make them more complementary and congruent. But there's several ways to look at it. Let's just have a look at one more. And the reason I'd like you to look at this one is it's almost the antithesis of what we just looked at with the same pose.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you just put these in this order just to mess with us?
Jerry put these in order.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, and that's exactly it. So I'm taken right away to the hat, of course. That's just the brightest shot. And I love I kind of like the stiffness. I like the discomfort, the face, the fact that I'm not seeing the eyes, the mystery. To me, I'm one of those judges that I'm going to sit on a panel. The other judges will start talking to the pose, and I'll be like, but I like it because like that facial expression makes me want to this image begins to almost intimidate me. It's almost identical poses. That one made me feel a little bit warm and fuzzy, and this one makes me want to back off a little bit.
Again, I'm a huge fan of monochromatic and simple, and this is a great way to present that. I feel, for me, the pose, I like the stiffness. I like the angles. The only spot is I would have hoped to throw a little wrench in it somewhere. So one little element where we could have made it softer, probably just in a finger on that hand, just lowering her center finger just a little bit. It would have taken the whole angular pose and the hard light and the really strong and given us just a little hint of something soft.
And yeah, I was going to say piano fingers is what I say. I don't know if that's the right terminology. And then one other thing I'd love to see, I've got a lot of light that's coming across the shoulder over the chest area. And there's just this soft, beautiful light that's starting to hit the chin that I would love to see come up into the lips because I really want to come up there, but I'm just being pulled back down to the chin and then to the upper chest area.
You were asking before about, the idea of when we look at an image, where does our eye go? And I think if we go back to our judging of the finalists, the images that were in the top 10 in the category the other day, it's about impact and learning to read yourself in order to be able to apply that to the editing and finishing of your work. What is the first thing you noticed? What is the first thing that grabs you in that image? And which you would have seen in the judging, and if you go back and look at it online, which you can do, iconawards.com, and go to the links, you'll see that the first comment from most of the judges most of the time was, what's the first thing they notice? Now, if the first thing that's noticed is not what you want people to be focusing on, then you need to work with that. You need to fix that. The second thing is what is the image about? Content and composition. So once you've figured out where the impact is and it's where you want it to be, what is the picture about? And does it have quality, etc., etc.? Before we finish this, I'd just like a little bit more the strength of the light on the hat. Is that too strong for you guys? It's just sort of dominating going back to saying impact.
It is dominating. I think that's intentional.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me. I would probably have to see it in print.
Okay.
To know for sure.
Yeah.
If that texture's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it probably is, and that's because I love the hat. To me is almost being featured, and I don't want to like that. Like, I really am working hard to just keep my eyes under the brim of the hat for the face, because that to me is where it is. The toe that's up with like the heel is up, and you're doing an amazing job of both kind of covering like the crotch area, but actually not. Then you're like, here's just like a teeny little peak, but that's really all you get. And there's so much happening down there. The hat's not really doing much for me personally.
Well, and the reason I brought it up is a lot of the pose, the leading lines in the pose are taking us to the face. The arm across the top of the knee is framing the face. The hat is framing the face. Everything to do with the structure of the image is taking us to the face. But as soon as we try to go there, the light on the hat pulls us away. So that's what we mean by a disconnect or an incongruent construction of the image. Some things are telling us to look here, something else is telling us to look there. Get them to complement each other, you get a far stronger message. Michael, Candice, that's been amazing. Some incredible information. I hope you guys have enjoyed it there. I hope you back home have enjoyed it as well. Again, Critiq, B&H, thank you so much for your sponsorship and support of these programs. There's more to come in other genres, but for now, that's us. And we might see you back at another session. Thanks, guys.